Hello and welcome to the ministry. Welcome to the final two parts of the Kingdom Marriage series. We are about to get into the part you've been waiting for, the Kingdom Marriage. So let's start with, when it comes down to Kingdom Marriage, somebody told us to buy this fairy tale lie. I don't know who did, but for some reason we all had this thought when we saw the word kingdom marriage, that because it's kingdom, we saw that it wasn't going to have no problems. That might be determined. Why do I say this? Let's observe the marriages that everybody loves to talk about. Top two: Boaz and Ruth. We really didn't get to see the marriage of Boaz and Ruth. What we know, though, is that when Ruth married Boaz, she was married to him long enough to conceive a child. Now, from biblical research, there is a testament that states that Boaz, in fact, died afterwards. He did not live long after they married. Some accounts state that he died the same night. So they wasn't even married that long before he died. He only was alive long enough to impregnate her and pass his lineage on to her. Now, from that point, looking at Esther and Xerxes, I went through an entire course teaching on the marriage of Esther and Xerxes. Everybody has this, I'm sorry about that. Everybody has this observation of Esther and Xerxes' marriage. Oh, Esther married Xerxes and they lived happily ever after, and then the only real problem that she had was that she had to save the Jews. Who lied to you? I heard a minister put it this way, and when you actually look at it this way, it makes kingdom marriage these fairy tale fugazi stories that people run around here trying to tell about marriage a whole lie. And I'm sorry that I'm sitting here busting y'all bubble. Well, I'm going to do this because I need y'all to understand. Don't get caught up in the woohoo, frou-frou, we getting married type thing. Do you think God puts us through preparation because he thinks that it's cute? I want y'all to sit for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years preparing for marriage, because you got wedding plans, place settings, and all that. You know that day is one day. One day. How many places can I put? One day. It's one day. You get married once. Now, in our society, sometimes people do recommitment ceremonies, and they recommit every year. Some people do the recommitment ceremony just to prove we still committed to each other, and it be all kind of hell going on behind closed doors in their marriage. They do that for cameras and money and all that kind of stuff, but they ain't got to do. But you ever notice those people that got married did it real quick? Real quick. Y'all ain't even know. Y'all was together for about 2, 3, 6 weeks. Got married. 30 years later, yeah, we still married. Is the ones that sat up there, they went, let us take a year to plan our wedding and 18 months to do this, to create this perfect multi-$100,000 wedding with all of the chandeliers and the diamonds and the this and the other thing. And they got divorced after how many years? 2, 3, 5. We all sat there and we implored Devon Franklin and Megan Good. We was sitting up there. Yes, they are our. Let them be the example. How many of y'all ran out and bought the book? Now what? It's not to say that the Lord can't fix it. If that was his desire, they will return to one another if it's meant to be. But if it was not, then guess what? She was his counterfeit, and there's going to be somebody that's going to come around right behind her that's better suited for him. Point blank period. I've seen other marriages that look like they were gonna make it. They were so adorable, and then they broke off, and you're like, what happened? They weren't suited to be with one another, and it was never gonna work. I was like, I haven't even gotten into the context yet. I'm just laying the groundwork. So everybody sits up there and doesn't understand that you look at Esther. Esther was a young girl from the Persian. She was a Jew pretending to be a Persian. So what ended up happening is when Xerxes created the edict, this woman was literally kidnapped from her home, taken in the middle of the night to a palace against her actual desires to be prepared to be, what's the word? Flaunted, presented, just paraded in front of people as this man's wife. And anything that was requested at the parties, at what have you, she had to do. She was held captive for a year. Blessed was the scenario that the man in which she was given assistance, meaning when Haman was assisting her, he was showing kindness and favor towards her. So did she have to go through the same treatment as everybody else? No, because she was favored. But that didn't mean that situation was jelly beans and gumdrops. That situation was a terrifying scenario. It was snatched away from your family, not allowed to see them, so on and so forth. And then you are going to be given over to a man in which you do not know. And you don't know what kind of condition this man's heart is in. The blessing for Esther is she got to meet him. And the favor of God was on their relationship, that he did not treat her like anyone. He didn't just use her. He did not abuse her, where he may have in previous situations and relationships just got what he wanted and did what he wanted to do. He had over 200 or so I don't know how many concubines he had. And then she had 5 servants from the maidens of, I guess, the concubines that were already there. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that in today's time? That you're sitting there, you're seeking out this particular man. He done kidnapped you, held you hostage yes, you're in a palace. Some people, hey, just keep me in the palace, I'd be good. But you got this man that kept you in the palace, and you know he got over 200 other women. Over 200 other women that he can go through his Rolodex whenever he feels like it and say, I want her tonight. I want her tonight. And the night he ain't with you, he could actually end up being with one of them. But everybody sits there and looks at this story like, oh my God, it's the most amazing love story. Can we look at some of the reality points of it? Because those points are scary. Let alone the fact that she then, after all of that, after being married to him for 5 years, had to tell him her true heritage of her roots. And then pray that due to any type of edicts and anything, that he wouldn't kill her and the rest of the Jews. Because she opened her mouth. Hopefully, he's not going to do that. Because she prayed and fasted. Okay? And oh, by the way, he was only in reign for 17 years before he died. Which means he was in reign for 3 years. 3 to 4 years. When he was with Vashti before he kicked her out. It was another 3 or 4 years before Esther came into the picture. Esther was married to him for 5 years, which takes us up to the 13th year, when she saved his life. They were only married another 4 years after that before he died. Everybody's in up there claiming this story is the best story in the world. Oh my God. Why did I just go through all of that? I wanted to make a very clear point to you. Kingdom marriage is not easy. It's very hard. And when it's kingdom, you could end up being married to somebody because of the fact that the Lord told you that's where he wants you to be. This is where God has designated you, and this is the person he's just appointed to be married to you, because this is the person that's going to help you get what you need to get done. And you have to determine whether you want to be with them or not. And now, does the Lord give us free will and free choice? He does. But I'm going to get deeper into that. This is what I'm going to say about the free choice part. God, when it comes to a relationship, he can have somebody for you. If you choose not to be with who he desires for you to be with, that's free will. He's not going to let you marry somebody that he didn't, how to say it? He's not going to force you to marry somebody that you do not freely make the decision that you want to be with. He's not going to force you. He wants you to be in covenant with this particular person. So he's never going to force you to marry the person. He's going to cause attraction. He's going to cause blah, blah, blah. But it's a decision on both parties to make the decision that, yes, we're going to commit to this. Because marriage is a commitment for years. Okay? So I hope my PSA sobered your mind. All right? Are we all sober on what marriage is? And with that being said, there is a caveat, which I'm going to go into deeper detail at the end of the next one. But I got to get into content. But I will say this. Just as Elijah was sitting on the mountain when he begged the Lord that he did not want to be in that situation anymore, and he said, I have 7,000 other prophets. God don't got to connect you with that person. But if one of y'all, he only need one of y'all to be an ordinance. He will have chosen the two people he wants to be together. He'll choose them. He will choose them. But if one rejects and the other one is fully committed, he will just move the one that rejected out of the way. Okay? The fact of the matter is, it's sad for the one that rejected, because everything that was supposed to go to them, they forfeited in that moment when they said, I don't want this person. They forfeited land, they forfeited money, they forfeited every prayer and everything that would have gone to them by not choosing. And that's the case. Which brings us to the actual content. Let me see how much I can get done in this 15 or so minutes. We back on the Buffy train. We are observing the relationship with Buffy and Angel. And again, I say, disclaimer, we ain't focusing on the series. We're focusing on the content. We're focusing on the relationship. We're focusing on the way that their relationship played out. It's not about so much the show, the demons, of this, that, and the other. No. Watch how I translate all this information. It's about what happened and how it is a good outline for what a kingdom marriage is. And then if I had time at the end of the next one, and I may have to do it as another video, let's see how it goes, we will determine or speak on some extra content, okay? I think I've covered everything. I've disclaimed. Now let's begin the content. Kingdom marriage. 1. The one, when you get with them, there can be, if you allow it to be, an element of resistance. This is a good thing. It shows truly what's wrong, and with it, then as you go, it can become closer, and you may be able to come to a place where you're no longer resistant to one another. When you first come into it, there's going to be an element of resistance. I don't know you. Now, we got people in today's society, they'll meet somebody at the club and they'll be in their bed 5 minutes later. Let's just be honest. She look good, he look good, let's go. In the world, that's the way the world do. I never understood that, because I just, how am I just going to give somebody my body and I don't know you. Who are you? Who are you? When I was in my last relationship, it took 3.5 years for me to sleep with that man. No. And if I'd been smart and knew what I know now, I probably would still be a virgin today. So, yeah, there's a resistance. That's normal. That's natural. It shows you're human. There should be resistance. 9 times out of 10, there's going to be resistance, because think about it. If the Lord is telling you this is the person that you should be with, your internal gauge is going to start to resist, because you want to have the ability to make the choice yourself. Point blank, period. So initially, you are going to resist. You're going to question. You're going to have all, this is natural. All natural feelings. God will begin to work on the man first giving him vision of what he can have, and that he may choose to walk into it when it comes into him, and he resists as well. Now, this is a catch-22, because the man can know before the woman knows, depending on where his heart lies. If the Lord has been hearing his prayers and he's been asking and he's inquiring of who his wife is, then he may tell him ahead of time who his wife is, if he's inquiring with the Lord. But 9 times out of 10, it's us that are the ones that are going to inquire to the Lord who's our God-ordained spouse. And we may know years ahead of time. I've heard of cases where the woman found out 5-6 years before time, 7 years, 9 years before time, when she asked, and the Lord honestly told her. And at the time that he told her, that guy that she was looking at was actually deeply involved in different type of illicit situations. He was doing drugs at the time. She was like, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Wait, let me work on it." She knew for 9 years. But by the time that the Lord allowed them to come together, he had cleaned up his act. He was back on track, and they doing ministry now. So it's not to say that the other person can't fix themselves, but sometimes the woman knows ahead of time. Sometimes the man knows ahead of time. But it's a process. With that being said, there will be resistance. There will be a supernatural drawing. When this person is who God has given you, you will notice a pull towards them. When the Lord shows you who they are, you'll be drawn to them. You'll desire them. You'll want them. You'll want to be connected within relation with this particular person. So it's not going to be something that's like, "Ooh, why would I want that person?" The only reason, real reason you will really resist it is you're still operating in rebellion, and it seems out of your regular. So if you haven't gotten to that place where it comes to the epiphany, okay, this is what I want, you're going to resist it. Perfect example with that situation where the woman knew 9 years ahead of time. If she said something to that guy then, he would have looked at her like she was absolutely out her mind. Matter of fact, I know of a woman that I listen to pretty frequently. She said that she made the mistake, and she said recently that she told the guy that the Lord told her that she was his wife. And they got into a huge fight. And when they got into a huge fight, she ended up separated from him. They ended up having to go through, she went through 7 days worth of fasting and all kinds of stuff, cleansing and all that type of stuff in order to get herself right. She's been going through warfare and all kinds of stuff. The things we go through for these relationships. It's a deep connection, and it comes with its own warfare. You got to be on post. If you praying into your relationship with your God-ordained spouse, I said, if you ain't even thinking about it, this is the first time you just stumbled upon this video, and I'm like, what is this? Start praying for your God-ordained spouse. I'm gonna give you 4 quick pointers. This should save your entire life. 1, identify what you are called to do in your desires. Identify those things. Once you have identified the things that you're called to do, then you need to pray mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, and socially for this to come into alignment with your God-ordained spouse. Okay? Once you do this, you begin to pray into every area of this man's life. You still don't know who he is. Now, if you are one of those types of women. How many of us have been. Pray to the Lord to reveal to you who your spouse is. But upon coming to that revelation, you're going to have to continually, repetitively ask him to make sure your heart is right for this thing. Because the Lord will allow this particular person to become your God-ordained spouse. But if the person chooses different, it could change. Now, that means that the person that he's choosing is a prototype, and it could eventually change. I'll dig deeper into that later as to why that may happen. But you pray into it. The way many have told me, pray into it like this particular person is your brother. Cover them in the blood of Jesus. Cover them in the areas, do so and do forth. When this happens, it should make it easier upon meeting for all these things to come into alignment. Because you have spiritually already, tenderized that situation. So by the time you come face to face, y'all already together. Spiritually, some people have been together 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many years. But it's all about what they do in their actual day-to-day life, which will determine the activities and how quickly the Lord will bring two together. Okay? That being said, as we move forward, everyone can see there isn't an ordinary love within this. It's scary. The fact that you are free will, you have the ability to desire it, but you may resist it. But it's like you're glued together. And this glue is pulling you closer. Have you ever heard of the old saying, pulling at your heartstrings? It's almost like somebody pulled at your heartstring. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me, which I believe was a point of initiation for me and my God-ordained spouse. I remember one day I was praying about love, caring, so on and so forth. I was emotionally in a place. This was back in 2016. I was sitting on the bed, and it was like I felt like somebody hit me in the chest. Strong hit. Right in the heart. And I'm like, what in the... You think they talk about Cupid's arrow? It was like something hit me so hard in the heart. I was like, what in the world is this? What? My heart had such an emotional outpour. I was like, what is this? And I felt it. It was almost like the Lord was hitching up the cord between me and this particular person at that moment. And I was like, what is this? What is this? So, yeah, it's going to pull on that heartstring. And you're going to feel it. You're going to emotionally be tugged on both ends. Now, the fact of the matter is, the man may resist it. If he doesn't understand what's happening, he may resist it and he may not go for it initially until the Lord deals with him. Sad part about when you ask the Lord to tell you, he will tell you, but you cannot interfere. You cannot contact. You cannot intervene. You can't throw spiritual darts at him to suggest, hello, I'm your one. Nope. Nope. You got to let the Lord do what he's going to do and allow him to do it in the time frame in which he desires for it to be done. Even if you may get into those modes where you're lonely and you wish that he was there with you. And you go on to your social media or wherever, if the person has social media, and you can see them. Because some of the people, you can actually look them up. But 95% of the people have social media unless they're old. And their kids sometimes have set them up with social media just to keep track of them. So you may be able to find yours. But don't be stalking them on social media. You know how many people got in trouble for that? No texting, no contact. No! Don't do it. I'm about to get into this next part in a moment. I'm going to try to finish up. As a woman, you might want more than a few words, but the business of him may keep him in a way that he's not frequently available to you, and will allow you to focus on the part of your life and your calling. When God is preparing you for marriage, he has him preparing as well. You can't see that, but you got to get ready. You got to proud. You got to prepare. You got to get in your head, okay, I have a calling. What is my calling? Let me figure out what my calling is. Let me figure out what I'm good at. Sit down and identify what your talents are. What are you good at naturally? What do you do that you have not done in years? What has life kind of pushed you away from that you are actually passionate about? 9 times out of 10, when you start heading towards your passion, your husband's going to start heading towards you. That's what it is. It is what it is. You got to head towards your calling, and your husband's going to head towards you. The farther you are away from your calling, the farther that man's going to be away from you. Sorry to say it, it's the case. It's always been the case. I've always seen the most activity on the side of my God ordained spouse when I was doing my calling. When I started to dig in for real, guess what? I started seeing his name everywhere. Everywhere. I started hearing it. I started hearing things in relation to him. Started getting into alignment. Because I'm in alignment. Preparing. Because the more you prepare, then you get in alignment, then things are going to line up the way that they need to for God-ordained marriage to come into place. But it's going to take you coming into alignment first. And when you come into alignment, prepare, find out what your calling is, then you will begin to see. I'm going to leave you with this. Boris Kodjoe released a quote several years back that we can sit up there and pray for all these characteristics that we desire for a man. Are we becoming what that man requires? We can ask all these things of him. What are we becoming in order to become the woman in which he's going to desire to marry? You understand what I'm saying? Think about that. So I'm going to leave this right here, and we're going to pick up in part 2 in the next video. This is Taj McCameron for the ministry. Much love, faith, peace, and blessings. Bye-bye.